Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, we haven't even really touched into all of that.
yeah, but because of
Big
that,
time.
that I had that in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, maybe I don't know what I'm feeling. Maybe I didn't just see you check that girl out. I mean, I literally started feeling like I was going insane.
Yeah.
And that's the worst part. And I tell people, you know, the porn is one thing, the lying is the other. That other piece that I addressed in the other interview I mentioned was I could no longer trust myself.
Yeah.
And when I can no longer trust myself, I can no longer trust that inner voice in me. I can't hear God anymore
Mm-hmm.
because he speaks in a still small voice.
Yeah.
So that's my experience with it. And I hated that piece was one of the last piece we learned about, the trauma piece of it.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is going on? We're healed. We're doing good. I know he's not stumbling. I know he's not in the other room. Why is my heart still beating? You know, I would go down the mall and I'm not even with him. We don't go to the mall together. I would go to the mall and see several large posters, and my heart would start beating thinking he would trigger on that.
Yeah.
You know,
But you see why it came last?
I do now.
Because if it would have come sooner, you wouldn't have been able to tell me what you just told me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to read something, and I shared this with my group last night out of Barbara's book, Your Sexually Addicted Spouse. And when I read this, it got very quiet. And I'm sure you've read this, you know, Lori and Jay, you probably have as well, although it may have been a while.
You read this at your group?
What's that?
You read this at a group?
Yeah, I read this to my group of men that I mentor, all sexually addicted men. And
Okay.
because I wanted to teach them I wanted them to understand the impact that their use of pornography has had on their spouses.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I want to read this to you, and this is probably going to be hard to hear, but I want to get your reactions to this as well. This is at the very end of her chapter 1 on, you know, your sexually addicted spouse and breaking through betrayal. Partners' descriptions of their betrayal experiences. The listener has the ability to empathize with another's pain. Hearing partners of sex addicts describe their pain upon discovering their spouse's sex addiction actually hurts. We could fill thousands of pages with partners' words alone, but we share only a few here. Read them out loud, and as you do, listen to what you hear. So these are the words that women use to describe their feelings. It left me shell-shocked. I threw up, couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and cried constantly. I felt horror, anger, rage, terror, fury at God. I loved my husband and I wanted his comfort, yet he was the source of my searing pain. I frequently had disturbing dreams and nightmares. I couldn't read, nothing made sense. I totally lost my ability to concentrate. I got lost a lot. My initial reaction was to shake uncontrollably. I've had this reaction before to someone's death. It was a death. It's hanging upside down, trying to right myself. It's being stabbed in the back and trying to find solid ground under the slippery pool of my own blood. Most of the time, it's lying in a shallow grave as a part of me dies. It was like someone ransacking my house, and I was left with all the pieces. I'm cycling through emotions like crazy. This is worse than when my mother was killed in a car accident. I've never felt so betrayed in my life, and it was devastating, traumatic. And Barbara ends this chapter by asking a question on a personal note. What do you think about when you read the list of partners' betrayal experiences? You know, with which feelings or experiences do you most identify? What do you think about when you hear those?
I can relate. I can.
Yeah.
There's another one in that book that really shocked me. They said my cancer was easier than this.
Yeah, I read that story to him also. And it's in the same chapter. It's just before that. My feeling on it, like Jay
somewhere fairly early on started to empathize, and he said it must feel like a rape. And I said, no, not a rape. That's too violent. This was more where it's like we were together intimately, and in the middle of that, I'm like connected with you and trying to be with you, and I think everything's fine, and then you get up and you do that with somebody else, and then there's a line of women behind them. That's what it felt like for me. That was the way this felt, that I thought everything was fine. I thought you loved me.
Yeah.
Only to turn out that I was just another person you were using to some extent.
Yeah.
You asked what comes to mind. I've heard other therapists say that, four different therapists say on different occasions, that the women who come to them whose husbands have been involved in porn don't act any differently than the women whose husbands have been involved in actual affairs.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, that means I'm not crazy. That's awesome. Because up till then, honestly, I thought I was crazy. But the more I heard over time, other counselors say this, I was like, okay, maybe I'm not so crazy. I wouldn't have truly believed that until I had my own clients whose husbands who had visited prostitutes act the same way as the women whose husbands were, quote unquote, just involved in porn.
Mm-hmm.
So it is traumatizing, like no joke. I tell the guys, this is like no joke, PTSD level traumatizing. I don't mean to make light of what our veterans in the military, our servicemen and women in the military have been through at all. But I do I say, would you do this to an Army vet who is now home from the war, and here's a car backfire and they hit the deck? Would you treat them this impatiently? Would you tell them, it's been 3 months, get over it?
Yeah. It's like, would you keep a car that backfires all the time?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, Jay? Because I know that, here we are, we're all sitting here crying.
Yeah.
The good news is this stuff has penetrated our heart to a point where it breaks us.
Yeah.
And yet I'm sure you remember a time, like I remember a time, where those words would have just been like water on a duck's back.
Yeah.
Not even come close because we'd hardened ourselves.
Yeah. And that's the difference between the guys that I've worked with who have a chance at saving their marriage, if that's important to them, and the guys who struggle and take longer and who have walked away from my program, are the guys who are like, if you want, it's not even if you want my cell phone, it's here's my cell phone, here's my laptop, here's this, here's the route I'm going to take to work so that I don't see billboards. They're willing to enter in to their wife's pain, and they're willing to see the world from her perspective. Because, okay, you've confessed to your wife, you've gone and you've taken a polygraph, and now you walk out and you're clean. That's like step one. Step two is, can you become a safe place for her?
Because there's no real other way for a guy to help a woman who's dealing with this, right? You've got you can't fake it anymore. You've got to become safe.
Right. And this requires what we refer to as the third type of love, which is, I will give of myself even if I get nothing in return.
And he's learned that. kind of love.
Yeah.
And the problem is, I think, and I think that's part of, we go back to delusion and denial and the fog and how I misunderstood relationship. Mm-hmm. And how I misunderstood what it means to be Christ-like for my wife. And that is, if not to become a doormat, because, that's a very complex conversation, but being willing to lay down and say, I'll quit my job. I'll give you my cell phone. I will let you drive the car everywhere we go.
Whatever it takes for her to feel safe, not all those things. But.
Yeah. But it's going to, and we'll get into this when we talk about rebuilding trust. Mm-hmm. It takes a radical level of openness to fix this.
Yeah.
It is not handing your wife a polygraph that says, I'm not lying anymore.
Yeah.
It's not saying I have covenant eyes on my computer, so everything should be fine. I was doing all of those things when I was lying my butt off.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I was so good at hiding it that she thought I no longer had a problem.
Yeah.
And so now, if I don't do something new, if I don't do something that is safe for her, it looks like all the same stuff I've done in the past.
Yeah. And for me, it needs to be long-term.
Yeah.
It's not just a short-term thing. I did it before. In fact, I noticed this pattern in our relationship where I would compliment him. Oh my gosh, you're doing so well. Thank you so much. And then it would drop off. It needs to be long-term. And there was something else I wrote. It would have been different for me if I had said, Jay, this is what I need, X, Y, Z, A, B, C, and everything in between. Whatever it was that I said, and he had said, nope, I either can't do it, I don't want to try, or I just will not do that for a woman, or whatever his attitude might have been. That would have been easier than the back and forth, because then I would have had to make a decision. You're not going to do it. Okay. I need to learn how to take a no. And now I need to cope. It was the back and forth.
Yeah.
It was the doing it for a little bit and then it dropping off, the doing it for a little bit and then figuring out or determining it himself, I shouldn't have to do this. It's the back and forth.
Very inconsistent, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that inconsistency led to some of the crazy making
relational trauma.
Of the relational trauma, because I would tell her, I checked out a woman at the grocery store. And then a week later, we would have the same conversation. And it's like, oh, well, it wasn't as bad as what you are thinking right now. I would minimize it. I would then go back and try to salvage my image at the cost of her sanity.
Yeah.
And one of the things, so I have a set of 3x5 cards I go through every night that are part of my daily disciplines. And one of them says, we already know the problem exists. Denial or resistance just prolongs the pain.
Wow. Say that again. That's really good.
We already know the problem exists. Denial or resistance just prolongs the pain.
No kidding.
And from guys, from your standpoint, it prolongs your pain too.
Yeah.
Let me make this, let me work with your own selfishness. If you want the pain to stop for you, own your stuff.
Yeah.
Because own it long-term. Just step into it, because every time you try to cover your image, every time you try to, minimize, that sets off her triggers. That puts her antenna even higher in the air. And so now it's, it leads into a new whirlwind of things versus, yep, that's what I did.
Yeah.
Or even being willing to sit in an uncomfortable accusation that isn't true. I totally saw you checking that woman out. Okay. you're right. I might have. That may be very painful for you that I would check out another woman while we're out on our date. Who cares if I did or not? I'm there to be her safe place versus to be the one that makes it correct, the one that that says, no, you didn't really see that. It's irrelevant. You know, I want to be the safe place for her to say, wow, you know, I can understand that would be so painful for you. And that's empathy. Empathy is the key tool that guys need to develop to deal with the relational trauma. And even to the point where I sometimes have to think of myself as a third person when Lori is talking to me. Because if I don't, I get triggered in my own identity, my own sensitivities. But if I can listen to her as someone she knows who's talking to me about her husband,
yeah.
You know,
as objectively as possible, or even like a reporter or someone, you know, without judgment.
Right. Trying to listen to her with my own triggers well under control or whatever, so that she can speak from her place of pain. And I can be that safe place to go, wow, that's so incredibly painful.
Yeah.
And that's so healing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this to wrap up on this topic. What does, is there a role that a support community can play in helping you overcome or get through or move through the relational trauma? And what is that role? What can that role look like for the spouse and for the guy?
For me, I call them hanging upside down friends.
And that's right out of what Barbara Stephan said.
Explain what you mean by that.
I have a few friends who responded to me really well. I have several friends, or other people, society even, that kind of shamed me for even caring. It shouldn't hurt. It's just porn. No big deal. You're insane, kind of thing. So I've kind of seen the gamut, and I can tell you the hanging upside down friends were, I like their approach. Their approach was healing for me. And what I mean is the kind of friends that would go, ooh, see, or Lori, I don't want to say what that was said, but I would have been angry. You know, I would have been really angry. And then it's like, okay, I'm not crazy, because society is telling me I'm crazy. I'm not crazy. Yeah. And like, some of these weren't even women whose husbands dealt with this. You know, they didn't even. So that was really, really helpful. And where I get the hanging upside down friends, I just met with one of them, and she really healed me. Because I'd finally been told, you're not crazy. I let that kind of, that right there was all I needed to hear. And so I went home, and I was laying outside thinking about stuff, and I was laying down on a recliner thing that we have, and a bird came and landed up on a tree. And he landed upside down. And slowly he turned right side up. And I said, that's what that friend's going to do for me. Kind of like what Jesus did when he first appeared to the disciples after he arose again. He walked with them in the wrong way and then turned them back the right way.
Wow.
Versus you're doing it wrong. You need to do this the right way. Yeah. I didn't have the capacity. My brain was too far rewired into PTSD mode to do it the right way, to do it the way I was supposed to. And plus I had tried it for 15 years. Yeah. You know, and that's what I got. So,
I love that picture. It just all of a sudden gave me a picture of a bunch of birds on a wire, and they're all right side up. And then there's one that's upside down. And all the ones that are right side up are telling you need to be like us. Need to be like us. But actually the reality is there should be a second frame that shows that they're the ones that are all upside down.
Yeah.
But they're projecting this image that they're right side up. And they're afraid to admit that they're upside down too.
What I tell women is even if we never talk again, find somebody you feel safe with. Find somebody you feel safe with. If you consistently go to somebody and you feel misunderstood, or like it's your fault, or like you should be doing something differently, or if it weren't for your past, then keep looking if you can.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, that's powerful.